let's bring on Dr. Scott J. White, Associate Professor and Director of the George Washington University Cybersecurity Program and Cyber Academy. Professor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about TikTok. This has been the topic du jour here for a while. We heard this. I remember covering this a couple of years ago. Like, I think it was during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. There was a big to-do about banning this. It didn't happen. What's different this time around?
Yeah, I think, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of things that are different. I think from our last election, we had a fair election in the United States. But it was brought up by the intelligence community that there was definite interference from China and Russia. And that interference really came in the way of using social media, which both of those countries are very good at being propagandists in the worst possible way. So I think we're very cognizant of the power that these organizations, TikTok, can have on kind of manipulating people's decision-making. But I think here specifically, I think when you start looking at, China being a surveillance society, it's the most surveilled society in the world. With their social credit system, you could jaywalk across the street. Your picture gets taken by a camera on the street. It's digitized. Your name comes up on a central database, and you lose points automatically. No judicial procedure. This is the fear in a liberal democracy. And I think these are things that we have to be concerned of in an ever-shrinking world of liberal democracies.
So we've got the app collecting data on, millions of American users, and it's collecting the same data that, many other apps like Instagram and Facebook and obviously these other apps on the same platforms are collecting. But what's different about TikTok? What are they doing differently as an app? Is it the fear of the connection to China?
Well, I think, I agree with you. I think that's part of it. I mean, if you look at Chinese national intelligence law, specifically, I recommend Article 7, 10, and Article 14. It makes it very clear that all private sector companies must work with the intelligence services. There are no warrants required. It's a phone call, or it's an automatic. You will share your database with us. And again, you like to think that the internet is a democratizing force and, really shouldn't be used as an intelligence gathering tool. But I think to your point, I think the scary stuff, and it's true that, Snapchat and X and the rest of these do keep data, but TikTok keeps the most amount of data or tries to glean the most amount of data. If we think of it in football analogy, we're starting, Facebook X is starting on the 50-yard line, and, the Chinese are starting through TikTok in the red zone. So, they just collect so much information. And the information they're going after is biometric, face print, retinal scanning, voice print identification. That is really deeply technical. And,
so when I upload a video to TikTok, it's scanning my voice to understand, to make a fingerprint of my voice?
You're absolutely correct. That's exactly what's happening. They're also scanning your face and even your retina. So theoretically, you could be anywhere in the world. If the Chinese are eavesdropping through their surveillance system, they will pick up your voice print identification.
Is that documented? Is that where's that coming from?
Oh, that's the way they do business. Yeah, that's all part of the surveillance society. And we know it's happening because they've already done it with their own people. We know it's occurring. Their social credit system is the basis of it.
Now, here's what's interesting, because it's one of these things where a lot of people have made a living on TikTok. There's been a lot of stars born out of TikTok. There's, Justin Bieber. Didn't he come from TikTok? So many of these, YouTube and Bobo said, well, you know what I mean. But there's a lot of people that, come from this. So obviously there is a lot at stake here. It's not just like, hey, let's get rid of this thing. Like, small businesses have gone viral on this. So, but when I was in China, I remember that I couldn't use almost any social network based in the U.S. over there. I couldn't use Twitter. I couldn't use Facebook. I couldn't use Instagram. It was a pain. So,
that's correct. And you probably used a VPN.
Yeah.
And even the use of VPNs now, they're starting to block those. You're correct. And the fact is that, our social media sites are not allowed in China. And as an American traveling in China, as you say, to attempt to connect to your social media, even through a virtual private network, is difficult. They're beginning to corrupt that system as well. But, so they're not playing fair. They're incredibly hypocritical in the way they do business. It's, we'll allow this to occur in the United States, but not at home. And that's not democracy. So I think we have to understand exactly what the Chinese Communist Party is doing here. They're not a friend of the United States, and they're not a friend of democracies.
What does this mean for other Chinese-based apps? If you look at the top 10 list of apps, I mean, Temu is a huge app. It's growing. It had a Super Bowl ad. And, I get a lot of questions from people saying, hey, Rich, is this safe for me to shop on? You get a thing that maybe $10 on Amazon. It's 39 cents on Temu. So
yeah, you're right.
Is that next?
Temu is very interesting, isn't it? Because, it's the fastest growing app of its kind through like Google Play or Apple Store. But if you look at it, it's kind of fundamentally based on the social credit system. Because in addition to the low prices that you talked about, Rich, it also gives free stuff to people who promote their app. So the more you use it and the more you disseminate that app to your friends, the greater credits you receive back. And it's in a creepy way, reminds me of their kind of social credit system. That if you play their game, you will be rewarded for it. It's something we're going to have to also look out for, because the information you're supplying through your purchases is also collected by the Chinese government.
So if this ban goes through, if this passes the Senate and goes to the president signs it, they've got to either divest this company to an American company or just goes away, like TikTok is saying that's probably what's going to happen. Does this have bigger implications for the U.S.'s relationship with China?
Well, I think that any policy decision that the United States makes that, places China at a perceived or real disadvantage will have some type of consequences to it. Look, I mean, as I say, the Chinese system is not a capitalist system. They don't have free and open elections. They don't have a free judiciary or an independent judiciary system. So, again, you're getting a communist dictatorship, basically. Are they going to dictate to a sovereign liberal democracy? And I think we're just going to have to be prepared to take a few shots. Other countries have. We're just going to have to prepare if we believe in democracy and through capitalism, in a fair market system. If we believe in it, then we have to show it. Look, we've taken apart large companies before. Just look at Bell, Bell Atlantic, Bell Pacific. It's not uncommon to take large multinational companies and diverse them. So asking TikTok to be purchased by an American company, fine, close your doors. We'll have the next day, you'll have an American competitor ready to start up and meet that market